So if you're diving, fishing, boating, anything that requires a boat, at some point you're probably going to decide that you need a new propeller. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that process of buying a new propeller for your outboard and why you would need one, and I'm going to tell you how to fit one and give you some advice on which one to get. So before we get started on the propellers, I'm just going to show you some of the stuff that you need. You're going to need spare split pins. So you go to your local hardware store, you get a pack of split pins. These ones are 2.5 by 32 millimeters. They may possibly be a little bit too long once you go to change propellers, and you can trim the ends with your pliers. You're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. You're going to need a spanner or a crescent or one of those torque wrench socket sets. You're going to need some marine grease. You can get these from boating shops. And something to clean the marine grease off of your hands with, and your propeller, and outside over there by the we're going to need a wooden block. So you need the wooden block to take the propeller off. So let's talk a little bit about propellers. Now I currently have a Parson T15 BMS 2-stroke outboard motor for my TrueKit Discovery inflatable boat, which is a 3.3 meter long inflatable boat, and I'm changing from an 11-inch pitch propeller down to a 9-inch pitch propeller. So I've bought propellers before. The boxes are generally pretty simple. You just open them up, out comes the propeller. So these particular propellers are compatible with Yamaha outboards and Parson outboards. And I'll talk a little bit about the propeller. Now this video is really aimed at sort of the beginner, someone who doesn't really know about propellers. So I'm just going to go through some of the basics, some of the things you need to know about propellers. So when you go to buy one, it's going to be sort of helpful to you. Most propellers come in right-hand orientation, which means that it spins clockwise. So this is the back of the propeller here. It spins clockwise, or otherwise known as a right-hand orientation. One other thing you need to know about propellers is spline. If you look into the center of that thing there, we've got 8 grooves. 8 grooves means 8 spline. So when you go to buy a new propeller and you're going through different propeller selections from different retailers, when they tell you how much spline it's got, they're talking about how many grooves that are inside there. So just another handy thing to know about. One other thing with propellers that you may see, on most propellers they don't have this, but occasionally they will, is you'll get some propellers with cupping. And all cupping is just the tips of the propeller blades just get folded in a little bit, and it gives you just a little bit more grip onto the water. It's more of a custom made, more of a custom made thing where the propeller is customized rather than something that all propellers just come with. Propellers are measured in 2 measurements, the diameter and the pitch. The diameter is across the widest part of the propeller. This propeller's diameter is 9¼ inch diameter. So all of the propellers that I can get for this particular outboard, the Parson T15 and also the Yamaha 15 FMHS, all these propellers are 9¼ inch, and mostly these propellers tend to come in this sort of a white powder coat finish. A lot of propellers come in sort of black powder coat finish. Now your cheaper propellers will typically be aluminium, and this is powder coated aluminium, or they will be stainless steel. Now when you're at the lower end of the spectrum and you're just buying a new propeller for a portable outboard or a small outboard, unless you've got a reason to really go for the stainless steel one, like you've got a bit of experience, or you just really want to try to splash out on getting a fancy nice propeller, there's not really a reason to go straight for the stainless steel propellers. Chances are, if you're changing propeller, you're changing it for a reason. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you're going to really need to know which one to go for. before you decide to go for stainless steel. The other measurement that you get with propellers is the pitch. Now this particular propeller is a 9-inch pitch. So it says 9 1/4 by 9. So this is a 9-inch pitch propeller. The one that's on my outboard motor right now that I'm going to take off is an 11-inch pitch propeller. So pitch is what you need to know about when you're talking about your high-end speed and your whole shot power and how those two affect each other. But the way pitch is measured is if the propeller does one full 360-degree rotation through a solid medium, which is a hypothetical thing because propellers don't travel through a solid medium. But let's just say that somehow they were powerful enough to go through a solid like wood. This is 9 inches. That's the distance that it covers when it does one full 360-degree rotation with no slippage. Now the reality is, when the propeller blade is in the water, there is a certain amount of slippage. That's just unavoidable. That's just part of the hydrodynamics. So you'll be asking yourself the question, what pitch do I need to get and why would I need to get it? Well, when you're talking about boating on a small boat, chances are you're either wanting to change your whole shot power or your top speed. Going to a higher pitch propeller, say the one that's on the outboard now, the 11-inch, is going to give you slightly more top speed. And going to a lower pitch propeller, this one, 9-inch pitch, is going to be a slightly lower top speed. So you might think, well, why not just get the higher pitch propeller for the better top speed? Well, the other problem that you run into is it can take either too long to get on for the boat to get on a plane, or the boat won't get on a plane at all. Because maybe you're in a situation where you've got quite a lot of weight in the boat and you're not quite getting enough acceleration to get the back of the boat out of the water and to skim along the water and get on a plane. That's ultimately what most boaties want. You want to get on the plane. So when you go down in pitch, which I'm about to do with this particular propeller, we're going to go down in pitch 2 inches from 11 inches to 9 inches. And what this is going to do is when I'm out on the water, it's going to reduce my top end speed. It's going to knock off 2 or 3 kilometers per hour, a little bit. It's going to knock off a wee bit from the top end speed, but it's going to give me a wee bit more whole shot power. And whole shot power is just the slang term for acceleration. So when we turn on the throttle and we get going, it's going to give us a wee bit more oomph just getting going and getting the back of the boat out and get on a plane. And for a lot of people in my situation where you have a small outboard motor, that's what you want. You want to get on the plane and you want to get going. Okay, so this is my Parson T15, and we're just going to walk you through the process of changing your propeller. So you've bought your new propeller. This is how you take off the old one and how to put the new one on. Now you'll see here that what you've got your propeller blade. This propeller blade is fairly worn. The powder coating has come off of the tips. But this propeller is an 11-inch, and if we have a look here, we can actually see it's written there, 3, which is 3 blade, 9 1/4 by 11 inch. Your propeller has your split pin. You're going to use your needle nose pliers to remove the split pin. Now I've actually already loosened this, but normally what you would have is the tail end of the split pin here will be bent, and so you'll have to unbend it to correct it, to straighten it, and then you remove the split pin. Have a look at the split pin. Just have a look at how big it is, how long it is. You'll often need to trim down the ends here when you're putting the new split pin in. In a pinch, if you don't have a new split pin, you can reuse the old one, but it's good practice not to do so. It's good practice to use a new one. We take off our castle nut, and under that we've got a washer. Just simple nut and washer, and then our propeller blade can slide off. Now, as I said, I've actually pre-loosened this. What you would normally do is use your wooden block here. So your wooden block stops the propeller from rotating, and you're going to use, to remove your nut, which is here, you're going to use your spanner, torque wrench, whatever tool, crescent wrench, whatever tool it is that you have. So you're going to use this wooden block to stop the blade from rotating when removing, and also when putting the propeller blade back on. So we'll just compare the two blades just before we put the new one on, so you get a little bit of an idea just how similar they are. So there's the old propeller, and there's the new one. Now the new one has a shorter pitch, so it travels less distance through a solid medium. When you compare the two, the difference that you can see is very negligible. Like you can hardly see it really, what the difference is. But if you look hard enough and you look long enough, you'll see that these blades are just slightly shorter than these blades, because this one is 11-inch pitch, this is 9-inch pitch. So, time to put this new propeller on. Now, whenever changing a propeller, you've got to change the grease around the splines here. So, typically, just use a rag or a cloth to spin it around a wee bit. Just clean off the splines a wee bit. You don't have to get all of it, but just get most of it, because we're going to replace this grease with some new grease. Now it's time to apply the marine grease. They sell them in these gigantic big containers. I really wish that they'd sell them a wee bit smaller. And you don't have to be fancy, but just put some grease onto the splines. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just get a relatively even coverage around the spline. Put the new propeller on. Have a look down here, make sure that this is fitting in correctly here. Now apply your washer. Different outboards may have slightly different washers and slightly different castle nuts. Just make a wee bit of a note here of where the alignment hole is. Apply your castle nut. Now here's where it gets a wee bit tricky. Some people, when tightening the castle nut and applying the split pin, will go by the option whereby you don't really have to tighten it at all, and other people will say you do have to tighten it. And of course the answer to this question is to refer to your owner's manual on the outboard motor and go by what that says. Usually it will give you a number of a figure in the amount of torque to actually apply, but if you don't have a torque wrench, then you just have to sort of guess, and it does specify a certain amount. So what we basically have to do is have a look at where the hole is and try to make a bit of a determination on how much we're going to tighten it to get that split pin in. So ideally what we want is we want it to be tight enough to get the split pin through, but not too tight that we're stripping the threads. So we can see right here that that's where our alignment hole is there, but we need to get the grooves in the castle nut aligned with it. Now right now it's already finger tight, so I'm going to have to tighten it a wee bit, and I'm either going to be tightening it just a little bit to get it round, or I may have to go around a wee bit more. Okay, so we'll put our block through here and we'll start tightening. Alright, so I've tightened it just a little bit. Now it's in line with the hole, but that might not be tight enough, so we'll try to go around a wee bit more. Okay, that's good. So I'll bring the camera up and I'll show you where we're at. So we had to go around a wee bit more, through around to the next notch, but now we're going to be able to get that split pin in there. We'll take away the block. We don't need the block now. So this is our new split pin. It's the same size as the old one. Put that split pin in the notch. So you'll see how we've got a wee bit hanging out the edge here. We're just going to bend that a little bit. So this is basically why you need a set of needle nose pliers. So we've bent that up 90 degrees, and technically that's enough, because all you need is enough of a bend for the split pin to just not come out. Usually I bend one of them a little bit. I give one a good bend and then give the other one a little bit of a bend as well. And what that means is that if you bend both of them a little bit, then if one of them breaks off there, then the other one is still holding the split pin in place, because ultimately the function of the split pin is to stop the castle nut from coming off and being lost. Now in theory, if the castle nut does become loose, if the castle nut becomes loose but it doesn't actually come off, then you won't actually lose the propeller, because we have to give consideration to what's actually driving the propeller. It's those 8 splines that are inside the propeller around the drive shaft. That's actually what's giving the propeller power and turning. So this is why people say that the castle nut doesn't actually have to be done up tight. You follow the recommendations in the manual, you tighten it to the required amount, but if it does happen to become loose and you have a decent split pin in place holding it there, then you're not going to lose it. If you're having problems with not getting your boat on a plane, you know, and it's a small inflatable, something like this, then you probably want to go down and pitch a little bit from wherever it is you're at. So you want to have a look at the model of your outboard motor and have a look at what different pitches are available. And the solution might be to go down and pitch from where you were. Now the outboard motor that I had before this 15 was a 10 horsepower, and I made the mistake of buying a hydrofoil first. The hydrofoil fits onto your cavitation plate here, and I thought that, oh, that's the thing to do, that's the thing to do, that's like the first thing to do to solve the problem. Actually no, going for a lower pitched propeller, if you're having trouble getting on a plane, that's really where you need to start.